So this is Larry D'Amico coming to you from the Chappaqua Library, and we're doing a talk today on Alexander Calder, Modern from the Start, which is the show that's on at the Museum of Modern Art at the moment. It will be on through August 7th, and it's a rather small show, comparatively speaking, compared to what I'm going to be showing you today. But well worth seeing. The beautiful pieces in the show, in the selection, and I think that it would be well worth a trip to the Museum of Modern Art at this point, since you got a double header. You've got the Cézanne drawings and watercolors, and the Alexander Calder show. So it'd definitely be worth a trip in. Okay, before I start, Joan is not feeling well, so I'm going solo today, and I'm going to try some things. I'm going to integrate some videos into this one also, since Calder's work is so much about movement. I thought getting a couple of those in there wouldn't be a bad thing. One of the things that Joan wanted me to do was talk about the Clinton birthday program, which is happening on Tuesday at 7 o'clock, August 3rd. There's going to be a community celebration of President Clinton's birthday. So you can, sign on through the website and celebrate his birthday. So there's going to be a bunch of community organizations participating in that. Okay, so on to Calder. Let's see. Let me make myself a little bit scarce here, for myself anyway. Alexander Calder is best known for his sculpture. His innovative mobiles, kinetic sculpture powered by motors or air currents that embrace chance movement in their aesthetic. The static stabiles and monumental public sculptures. He didn't limit his art to sculpture. He also created paintings, jewelry, theater sets, costumes. Calder preferred not to analyze his work, saying theories may be all very well for the artist himself, but they shouldn't be broadcast to other people. Okay. Born to a family of artists, Calder's work gained attention in Paris in the 1920s and was soon championed by the Museum of Modern Art in New York, resulting in a retrospective exhibition in 1943. Major retrospectives were also held at the Guggenheim Museum, Museum of Contemporary Art Chicago, and the Whitney in New York, to say nothing of the European venues. Calder's work is in many permanent collections, including the Whitney, the Metropolitan, Guggenheim, Museum of Modern Art, National Gallery in New York, in Washington, D.C., the Pompidou in Paris, and public and private collections throughout the world. Calder created many paintings and prints, miniatures, such as the fabulous Circus de Calder, theater sets, jewelry design. Okay, so we're going to move on. Okay. Alexander Calder was born in 1898, the second child of artist parents. His father was a sculptor, his mother a painter. Because his father, Alexander Sterling Calder, received public commissions, the family traversed the country throughout Calder's childhood. Calder was encouraged to create from the age of 8. He always had his own workshop wherever the family lived. For Christmas in 1909, Calder presented his parents with two of his first sculptures, a tiny dog and a duck cut from brass sheet and bent into formation. The duck is kinetic. It rocks back and forth when tapped. Even at age 11, his facility in handling materials was apparent. As you can see on the right, the dog on top, the duck on the bottom, and above you see his father, Alexander Sterling Calder, with a bust portrait of the painter Robert Henry. So he was very, very talented himself. His also Alexander Calder's grandfather was a sculptor. The family was stonemasons from back generations. Despite his talents, Calder did not originally set out to become an artist. Instead, he enrolled in Stevens Institute of Technology after high school and graduated in 1919 with an engineering degree. Calder worked for several years after graduation at various jobs, including a hydraulic and automotive engineer and fireman in a ship's boiler room. While serving in the latter occupation on ship from New York bound for San Francisco, Calder awoke on deck to see both a brilliant sunrise and a scintillating full moon, each visible on opposite horizons. The experience made a lasting impression on Calder. He would refer to it throughout his life. Calder committed to becoming an artist shortly thereafter. In 1923, he moved to New York, enrolled in the Art Students League, also took a job illustrating for the National Police Gazette, which sent him to the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus to sketch the circus scenes for 2 weeks in 1925. The circus became a lifelong interest for Calder's. And after moving to Paris in 1926, he created his Cirque Calder, a complex, unique body of work fashioned from wire, leather, cloth, and other found materials. The Cirque Calder was designed to be manipulated manually by Calder. Every piece was small enough to be packed into a large trunk, enabling the artist to carry it with him and hold performances anywhere. Its first performance was held in Paris for an audience of friends and peers, and soon Calder was presenting the circus in both Paris and New York to much success. Calder's circus performances often lasted for 2 hours and were elaborate. The first performances were for people like Marcel Duchamp, basically Jean Miro, and many of the artists who became very close friends to him. And Mondrian attended. So you can see the drawings on the right that he did for the Police Gazette in 1925, and then on the left you can see him with a set of his creatures and the players. I actually have a videotape of him performing this. Now, unfortunately, since I'm by myself, I'm not able to answer a whole lot of questions at this point, but if you do have questions, put them in the chat feature and I'll look at them at the end so that I can check them out. But for now, I'm going to try and play this. This is a fairly short clip. It's only going to be about 3 minutes, but you can see him, you know, setting out his wares. On the right, you can see a close up of one of his horse and rider, which is one of the characters in his circus. And above, you can see him standing in front of a collection of these pieces. If you haven't seen it, they have this entire collection at the Whitney. They used to have it out in a vitrine. I don't know if they have it out right now. So he would do this with sound effects. He would make the sounds of the horses and the sounds of the lions and things like that when he would play with these things. Not very PC at the moment. A doll that smokes. Okay. All right. So, as you can see, he had the ability to draw. white, unique approach to this stuff. The interior of these things, what I'm going to do is put the zoom on. He did a whole series of these animals, elephants, baboons, monkeys, birds of all kinds, elephants, you know. Let's see, where's this? Okay, here we go. And if you look at these, the inside of the drawing, the white inside the drawing is as active as the line on the outside. So let me show you a few more of those. So if you see what I mean, the contour on the outside of the actual mark that makes up the drawing is one thing, but the white on the inside of the drawing is also very active. It's very much part of the bird quality. You know, if the black were gone, the bird would still be there in that empty space. Space is a very important thing in Calder. The space between objects, the space within objects. Okay. Calder soon began to sculpt from wire many portraits of his friends and public figures of the day. Word traveled about the inventive artist, and in 1928, Calder was given his first solo gallery show in New York. This exhibit was soon followed by others in New York, Paris, Berlin. As a result, Calder spent much time crossing the ocean by boat. He met Louisa James, a grandniece of the writer Henry James and William James, on one of these steamer journeys. And the two were married in January of 1931. He also became friendly with many of the prominent artists and intellectuals of the early 20th century at this time. Jean Miro, Ferdinand Ligier, James Johnson Sweeney, who was an art critic, Marcel Duchamp, to say nothing of Mondrian and Jean Arp. Okay. And picture on the right is the wedding party, and the lady sitting next to him is his wife. Okay, and here are those wire portraits that I was talking about. Above you see Jean Miro, and you see how with just that one little line for the hair, he captures the style of Miro's hair and those eyes with those little spiral eyes. He really gets it, you know, that the arch of the eyebrows and all of that. And on the right is Ligier, and that beak of a nose and that the wiry mustache, really, really inventive and wonderful. And then below there's Jimmy Durante. Anybody who remembers Jimmy Durante, you can see the likeness. Okay, he did a whole series of Josephine Baker, and you know the animation in the quality of the wire, you know, the movement, that sense of character of Josephine Baker is definitely in these pieces. He did I don't know, he did 10 of them at least, if not more. And on the left is Miriam Greenwood, who was a American painter. She was a muralist, part of the WPA and all of that. If you listen to me when I did cover the muralists. I talked about Miriam Greenwood at that point, but she was, you know, obviously part of the scene at the time. So Calder was back and forth from the U.S. and back to Paris throughout this time. He was constantly traveling, and Louisa traveled with him once they were married. Okay, so in 1930, basically, Calder visited Pet Mondrian's studio. And I'm going to read you some of this. So composition with red, blue, and yellow was a Mondrian composition from 1930. This would have been stuff that was in his studio at the time. Pure abstract art becomes completely emancipated, free of naturalistic appearances. Okay, so it was really about the forces of that flat plane and the interaction of color, very simple, pared down primary colors, red, yellow, blue, black, and white. It's really the dynamics of that surface composition that he was interested in. It was a very exciting room. Light came in from the left and from the right. On the solid wall between the windows were experimental stunts with colored rectangles of cardboard tacked on, and a Victrola, which had been some muddy color, had been painted red. I suggested to Mondrian that perhaps it would be fun to make these rectangles oscillate. And he, with a very serious countenance, said, "No, it's not necessary. My paintings already move very fast." This one visit gave me a shock that started things. Though I had heard the word modern, I never did I consciously know or feel the term abstract. For 2 weeks or so, I painted very modest abstractions. At the end of this, I reverted to plastic work, which was still abstract. So this series of untitled abstractions that you can see right next to the text below here and above the text are all the abstractions that he created during those couple of weeks. It really, this interaction really changed the direction of his career. He joined a group founded in 1931. The members included Jean Arp, Robert Delaunay, William Binks, Einstein, Jean Hélion, Mondrian, and André. I'm not going to massacre that name by saying it. And they did several gallery shows together. So you can see examples, this wonderful Jean Arp piece on the left. It's a three-dimensional piece. It basically is cut out from plywood and painted. And then there's Robert Delaunay. He and his wife, Sonia Delaunay, really started a real school of color and thought. And so you can see that he was in company with a bunch of other people who were trying things and moving into abstraction and exploring that. Okay. So Calder's moving painting Black Frame in 1934, this came from the Calder Foundation in New York. The site has a film showing the piece in motion. The white spins and twirls, the yellow circle rotates, and the red ball hovers. This is one of a series in answer to his question to Mondrian, what would it be like if they moved? So these were really beautiful pieces. I really love them. And if you have a chance, I will give you the link to the Calder Foundation, but if you go to their website, it's fabulous. It's really a spectacular website. And they have, you know, video clips of all these in motion. It's definitely something to see. Okay. Marcel Duchamp visited the studio at 14 Rue de Colomb. And again, seeing Calder's latest work. Now, you know, there was a motor-driven thing. This is a quote from Calder. There was a motor-driven thing with 3 elements. The thing had just been painted and was not quite dry. Marcel said, "Do you mind?" When he put his hands on it, the object seemed to please him. So he arranged for me a gallery show. I asked him, what sort of name could I give these things? And he at once produced Mogul. And in addition to something that moves, in French, it means motive. So using small electric motors and cranks, he concentrated on mechanizing his sculptures. Okay, and these are 2 earlier pieces, wood and wire. Beautiful texture. But look at the shapes, look at the spaces between things. The space around them is activated by them. The shadows cast by the pieces is really wonderful, which if you get to this show at the Museum of Modern Art, they take full advantage of there. Okay. In 1933, Alexander and Louisa bought and renovated an old farmhouse, which you can see up to the right, this wreck of an old barn of a house. And they renovated the farmhouse. In 1937, he created his first large-scale bolted stébile, fashioned entirely from sheet metal, devilfish. He created this in his ice house studio at Roxbury. It was enlarged from an earlier, smaller stébile, and the work was exhibited at Pierre Matisse gallery show. And we're going to go more into that in a little while, but you can see, let me do a zoom and we'll explore some of the stuff on this page, because there's a lot of interesting things here and hard to see small. Let's see. I'm going to go first to the sculpture, and you can see the bolts that he used. And in actuality, you know, one of the things, he graduated from college with an engineering degree, and mathematics and engineering were to play a crucial part in his work throughout his career. If you look at how these bolts are placed on this sculpture, they're as much a part of the rhythm of the sculpture as the large planes of metal are. You know, this had not been done. Fabricated steel sculpture had not been done before this time. Calder was inventing new forms of art through these things. Okay, and now I want to move over to this little ensemble of objects, which were all things which Calder made for cooking, for grills, and for various objects that were used in the kitchen, ladles and things like that. None of that was bought, store-bought. He created all of that in his studio. And here's a view of the kitchen. And then down here is a wonderful view of the forks that he had created. And then here's a view of this was from the 60s, I believe, the addition of the studio on the back. And you can see, you know, what kind of shape the house is in now. Much better than it was earlier on, looking like that. Okay, so, all right. And this is the show at the Pierre Matisse Gallery. Pierre Matisse was Henri Matisse's son. He showed a lot of avant-garde art, a lot of European artists, but he also had a relationship with Calder that went on for 12 years or more, where they showed repeatedly together. This show took place in, I believe, 1939. He had another show in 41. You can see down below on the lower right, you can see a little sketch that Calder had done of the pieces that were going to be included in the show. And the piece that's dead center here, with the balls and the frame behind it, that was one of the mechanized pieces. That was what he called frames. So it's a three-dimensional painting. Okay. So these pieces were, around that time, and they're a combination of the stabiles and mobiles. So they had both quality to them. All right. So in 1939, Calder was commissioned by the Museum of Modern Art to create a mobile for the top of the staircase, the main staircase. And he installed this piece. And then in 1943, he was the youngest person to be given, he was 45 years old at the time. He was the youngest person to be given a career survey at the Museum of Modern Art at that time. So on the left, you see an installation of several of his pieces, and on the right is a double-sided drawing in advance of the exhibition, to give some kind of a layout, some kind of an idea of the pieces that were going to be included in the show. And here's another installation shot from that show. Again, 1943. So this was during the war years. This is Calder later, with Jean Miro. They were close friends. Calder was just an adorable bear of a man. From what I've heard, just people loved to be around him. And you can see in this piece the correlation between Miro's work and Calder. And though they were on opposite sides of the ocean when these two pieces were created, there was a correlation in the shapes that they were working with. It was a very, close bond that they had. And, basically it's kind of cosmic, star-like, or cellular shapes and forms, very biomorphic. So that was part of the dream that they shared, the surrealist notions that were in the air and that they were working with. Notice again, very primary, simplified colors, but really active shape. The shapes, the spaces between the objects, the spaces between the forms. Okay, and I am going to attempt to play this Mogul for you because seeing one of these things in action is really important. So let's see what we can do here. There we go. So the air, the space between things, the leaf-like quality to this, the blossom, the spaces between the objects. It's flight, it's bird, it's light. It's about air as much as it's about the solids. And sculpture had not been about this before. This is a whole new form. Okay. So the sheer inventiveness of this guy, the imagination, the places that he'd go, there's so much variation, and I could not even. There are 16,000 pieces recorded that he created in his lifetime. The Calder Foundation website is definitely worth a visit. I can tell you that. I'm gonna do a close-up so we can see a little bit more. I'm gonna zoom in so we can look at this a little bit closer. And you see the sea glass integrated, woven into this mesh-like form. It's objects. There's a key for a sardine can in there toward the back. The little spirals, the washer, but this beautiful sea glass. Can you imagine what this is like when the sunlight passes through it? And this one, brass gong. I would really love to hear this piece play. Okay. And along with, as if what he had done so far with inventing a new form of sculpture and a new form of new forms of sculpture, he actually did numerous set designs for the Martha Graham Company, for other dance companies, for theater pieces. Here you have Martha Graham in 1950 wearing the jewelry that was created by Calder, and also the set is a Calder, though I don't have an enlargement of the set for us to see that. On the right, you see a set for a piece that took place in Paris in 1952, and you see Calder himself putting a necklace onto Jean Miraut's neck. And so this was an avant-garde performance in Paris. Okay. And now we start to move on to the monumental scale pieces. And basically, these started in the 60s. I'm not sure if this red horse is still on display at the National Gallery, though it's still in their collection. And one of the other spectacular things that's on the website is actually they have a worldwide map with indications of where the pieces by Calder, the public pieces, are situated throughout the world. And you can hit on the map and it will take you to that particular city and show you in that particular city where they're located. So it's global. It's just a remarkable website. Like I said, I can't say enough about it. Okay.
Here's YMCA single version.
In 1963, hold on a second. I may have to turn something off here. Alexa wanted to participate in this. I just decided she shouldn't. Okay, so in 1963, Calder completed construction on a large studio overlooking the Indre Valley with the assistance of a full-scale industrial ironworks. He began to fabricate monumental pieces in France and devoted much of his latter years to public commissions. Some of his most important projects included lower below, you can see 3 discs, Man in 1967 from Montreal, Red Sun from Mexico City, and then this piece in Rapid City, Michigan. He also had major retrospectives at the Guggenheim, as I said, in the Houston Museum of Fine Arts, the Modern Art Museum in Paris, and the Whitney in 1976. And Calder died the year of that retrospective. Okay. And this one is Flamingo, which is in Chicago. Quite a remarkable piece. This is the Calder Mobile at JFK Airport. I haven't been to JFK in a long time, so I don't know if the thing is still up, but I would assume it still is. And then this is a piece from Spoleto, Italy. So you get some idea. Now, this piece is 5 stories tall. It's gigantic. There's room enough underneath that thing for cars to drive through it. And in fact, they used to at one point, but they put those curve cuts on it now. And this piece was a Mech Head from 1939, and then was fabricated into a monumental scale piece that's a high cut at Rockefeller's estate. And again, 5 swords and black flag are both located at Storm King. And I believe Storm King has at least 8 pieces, if not more, in their possession. Now, again, you know, these pieces were fabricated, you know, they're 74, but many of his pieces were fabricated, you know, in the mid-century when no one else was doing this. And a lot of artists picked up on this. A lot of the work that's at Storm King was all influenced by Calder's approach to sculpture. It may take on many different forms, but the use of steel as a painted steel as a art form was really something that he was a pioneer in. Okay, and now we're getting to some of the pieces that are at the Museum of Modern Art right now. Sandy's Butterfly is in MoMA's collection and is on view now. This wonderful piece. Again, primary colors, you know, red, yellow, blue, black, and white. Many of the sculptures are black, many of the sculptures are red. When they're situated out in nature, in a field, you know, the red really holds up against the green of the lawn and the trees and all that. The black also is a very strong graphic quality, so it holds up outdoors really well. Okay, before I go on and actually turn on this video, that's going to be what I'm going to leave you with. But what I'm going to talk about is Calder, inventor of the Mobile, is a 56-minute American Masters thing. It's available on Canopy, so you can watch it. You know, all of us have access to Canopy who are members of the library, so you can tune in for free. And also, I put in the calder.org, or if you put in Calder Foundation, you'll get to their website. It's fantastic. I recommend it highly. I'm gonna try and tune down here and see if I can pull up any questions that people had. Let's see. And chat. Let's see if I've got any chats in here. I don't see any. And it may be that I can't see it because, you know, Joan is not here. So not sure if anybody tried to communicate with me through the chat, but I can't see it. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this video. This is a really nice video. It shows him. It's a better quality than that earlier one that I had shown of the circus. So this is about 10 minutes long. So I'm just going to leave it to run. If you want to stay and watch it, you're welcome to. At the end of it, I'm going to sign off. And let's see. For next week, we are going to do, actually, we're going to have a meeting next week. So that would be August the 6th. And then it's going to be 2 weeks again after that. What I'm going to do is Louise Bourgeois, Freud's Daughter, which is a show that's at the Jewish Museum right now. And really interesting stuff. Okay, so I'm going to try and play you this videotape. Let's see if I can get this going. And there we go. Enjoy. Oh, sorry. Okay. So, for sheer inventiveness, this man wins the prize. I you know, I didn't even cover the fact that he did tapestries. He painted jet planes, racing cars, and you know, it's just keeps going and going. 16,000 pieces in his lifetime. The man was a factory in and of himself. So there you have it. Remarkable man. So next week, Louise Bourgeois, and I hope you guys have a good week.